Mr. Powers makes sense, but in deference to a commissioner asking for a 1-week delay for additional information is not unreasonable. So I will support the motion, but I do support this project going forward. But to allow a commissioner to get an answer to a question relative to an item, I think is appropriate.
And while I appreciate that, that's the point of an agenda review. So with that, I don't see any other questions. Commissioner Fast.
I guess I don't see these as duplicative. I mean, these are, and so that's, is there a question, Commissioner O'Hara, you can ask now? I just don't see that the other study, that they're in conflict or duplicative. I see it's like frosting on a cake. You know, I would see the Metcalf.
To answer that is, we have hired a consultant to revision our transit system. That was the task that was put before them, to revision, because our transit system has been an utter failure for 50 years, and it hasn't worked. And we wanted them to revision our transit. And therefore, we're going forward with a study that really is following our old patterns, and it just seems to me common sense. I would wait until we get our information from our consultant. And how much are we spending on our consultant?
I don't have that number right in front of me, but I believe it's approximately $400,000.
400,000. So let's get our value of the 400,000. But I just want to table it for a week, see if Mark will let us wait until after we get back from our consultant the information, and then make the informed judgment and decision as to whether we want to go forward with this.
All right. So I think, Commissioner Myers, you had your hand up.
Well, my statement was going to be, I just think it's common sense that this corridor is not going to be affected within this new plan, whatever it is. This corridor is not going to have a big change, and this allows us to look at this corridor and make better decisions after we get our consultant's report. So again, I don't see the need for delay.
So, Mr. Powers, let me correct one misstatement up here. Transit hasn't been an utter failure in Johnson County. Your team has done exceptional work with the resources that have been provided to you. And so I want to correct that and hope you know that the majority of this board supports the work that you and the Transit Department does, and we're grateful for its asset to our community. That being said, we know that Metcalf is going to be a key corridor. Having this opportunity to have additional eyes and partnership on Metcalf's plan is important. Everybody's had an opportunity to speak on this. We're going to call the question on the motion to table. This is to table it, just so everybody understands. That's the motion pending, is to table, and ask for a second.
Second.
This, and ask the clerk to call the roll on the tabling of this.
Commissioner Fast.
No.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, no.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, no.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, no.
And Chairman Kelly.
No, 2 votes in favor, 5 against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Very good. Now, how about a motion? Commissioner Hanslick?
I move to approve a local agreement with the Mid-America Regional Council to accept Planning Sustainable Places grant funding in the amount of $135,000 with a required local match of $37,500 to be provided in partnership with the City of Overland Park to study the feasibility of higher frequency transit service along the Metcalf Avenue corridor, as well as the necessity for the appropriate level of passenger amenities for such transit service.
Allenbrand, second.
Moved by Commissioner Hanslick and seconded by Commissioner Allenbrand. To Commissioner Ashcraft at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Powers, just for clarification, if by some beyond expectation suggestion that Metcalf no longer be a corridor supported by transit, would we still go ahead with the study?
I don't want to speak on a hypothetical that I think is unlikely to happen.
Oh, I would agree, but we're not locked into doing the study. If the strategic plan had something totally different than what we expect it to have,
If the board directed staff to go back to Mark and say, we're calling that off, we would do that.
okay, thank you.
Not seeing, Commissioner Fast.
Yeah, I mean, when I was on city council, we had a planning sustainable grant. It is very much directed, how your areas of study, it's a collaborative process. So it's not, am I right? It's not this agreed upon, I mean, when you get this funding, they're not telling you what you need to do. It's a facilitative community up process.
Absolutely, Commissioner. I think that's one of the real benefits of this particular program is that it really allows Overland Park to participate at the same level as the county so that we can, find common ground on what the needs are.
Thank you. At this time, we'll call the roll on Commissioner Hanslick's motion.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
No.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes?
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
We have 6 votes in favor, 1 against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Very good, thank you. At this time, we'll move on to the action agenda that's printed, starting with number 5, and this is a City of Gardner application for the final plat of Clare Crossing. Diane Wickland is here to present this item. Ms. Wickland, thank you again for your presentation on this on agenda review and its impact on the airport compatibility plan coming plus to us. Is there anything further that you wanted to provide at this time as we consider the item?
No, Diane Wickland, Planning Department. There are no updates or changes from last week's presentation, and am available for questions, and the applicant is also present.
Sure. Thank you very much for that. Questions regarding this item? Commissioner O'Hara.
We'll turn the mic on. Okay, sorry. Okay, I just wanted to refresh my memory. Again, this is on the southeast corner of 175th and Clare Road. Yes, I do not have any problems with it, and I do have a motion when you're ready.
I think you can probably just go ahead with your motion.
Okay. I move to adopt resolution number 079-24 approving a final plat, first plat for Clare Crossing located within 1 mile of New Century Air Center for the reasons and subject to the stipulations as recommended by the Airport Commission.
Allenbrand, second.
Moved by Commissioner O'Hara and seconded by Commissioner Allenbrand. Any further questions on this one? If not, I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
Aye, we have 7 in favor, none against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Very good, Ms. Wickland, thanks as always. We'll move on at this time to item number 6, and this will be a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan, as well as the 2025 action plan and citizen participation plan. These are going to be presented by Leslie Davis. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open a public hearing. Ms. Davis, thank you for your presentation last week. Obviously a meaty topic, but thank you for your report on agenda review. Would you like to provide any presentation at this time?
I do not have anything additional.
Well, thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to ask you to step aside briefly. This is a public hearing and an opportunity to talk about these consolidated plans as well as the action plan and citizen participation plan. Is anybody interested in talking about those at this time? All right, come on up.
Apparently I am.
Well,
My name's Janelle Bowers. I'm the CEO of Friends
if you
of
could just
John-
wait for
Oh,
one
sorry.
second, Janelle. I appreciate you being here and for commenting. I'm going to ask the clerk to go ahead and get our timer up. All right.
Janelle Bowers, Friends of Johnson County Developmental Supports. For 30 years, Friends of JCDS has partnered with various funding sources, whether it's private foundations, but community development block grant funding has been there for the long haul. And this funding has allowed us to provide affordable and accessible housing for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities who happen to be served by Johnson County Developmental Supports, kind of hence our name, right? As we move forward, obviously, we're expanding that audience. I'm sure you've heard the rumors. And we'll continue to expand that because we've achieved our goal for JCDS. We've done the 24 houses, even though one is still being built, that meets their needs. But there's a greater need. But I want you guys to think about community development block grant funding as a whole. Yeah, it's helped us. It's helped a lot of people. It's helped children's services. It's helped the elderly. It's helped with ADA regulations. It's helped. And helping those of us that are the weakest of us, as it's often referred to. What is it that Truman said? The littlest, the last, the least, and the littlest. It makes our entire community better, right? It's the curb cut rule. I know you've heard me talk about it. But when you make a curb cut, it doesn't just help the person in the wheelchair. It sure as heck helps that UPS or FedEx driver. It helps the mom with the stroller. It helps the guy that's hauling anything down the street. And I really like automatic doors because as a former development director, I often would carry in 62 boxes and God knows what balanced on my head. And if that door opened up, that was a lot easier than me trying to figure out how to open it up with my hand. Community Development Block Grant helps the community. It helps us and it helps everybody else. And you have a great staff that puts that together. So just thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers.
And I have 20 seconds for questions.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Anybody else who wanted to provide public comments on these plans? Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. Invite Ms. Davis here for questions. Open up for conversation from the board. Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. And Ms. Davis, I know Aaron Wynn reached out to you yesterday, so I'm gonna pass these down. And again, my apology. I had a conference call or Zoom meeting yesterday with Upwards Nationwide Company, daycare, in-home daycare services, and really didn't know much about it. And I had requested Aaron Wynn a couple weeks ago to be on that meeting, and we just took the liberty of recruiting Adam Norris since he was over planning, and thank you so much for doing that meeting and talking with us at the last minute. But I just, childcare is so critical, especially I've noticed it in my district, being able to afford to have childcare. I spent 3 years of having a licensed in-home daycare service because I couldn't afford to pay for daycare, and that allowed me to have that daycare in my home and licensed, and it was a great opportunity for parents to have that economically. So this company, it's just critical, and the lack of affordable, high-quality childcare is critical. Aaron Wynn sat in on this, and we both got really excited about maybe these possibilities. I'd like to propose that we add an economic development eligibility activity to the county's consolidated plan. It doesn't really commit to any specific project or public engagement process. It could end up with allocated dollars of this activity. Also, to cast a wider net of partners looking into innovative ways of spaces of childcare and explore public-private partnerships. This meeting I had yesterday with tech startup company called Boost and their business operation. She sent me it later last night, and I can forward it over to everybody to see. It's nationwide company. This young lady actually lived in Olathe. That's how I ended up with the call of a connection of meeting with her. I don't know if it's a total fit at this time for our childcare needs. But I know personally from the licensed operated daycare that I had, how critical it was to the parents that brought their kids there. And so I do have, it's just opening this up. I don't know if it can work in with these funds. There's other opportunities Erin thought she could explore as well. I did reach out to the chair this morning to let him know, and again, my apologies, because nothing more that I don't like is that we've had opportunity during a agenda review, and here I am, the day before, but I was totally unaware of this call and, of this Zoom meeting that I had scheduled. And I thank the staff for participating in it. So I want to bring this to you if there's a possibility, and I will forward over the email for you to contact, because I trust that you'd be able to do that. But I just think this is a great opportunity to think about doing this.
Ms.
Yes,
Davis, you want to address that?
Leslie Davis, Johnson County Community Development. Good news is it's already in the con plan. Economic development is an eligible HUD activity, and creating economic opportunities is one of the 3 objectives of the con plan. With that being said, I will let you know that the 2025 projects have already been set, which include 3 projects that fund childcare scholarships through JCPRD and Olathe Parks and Rec. But I will also add that there have not been any applications by eligible applicants for economic development in terms of childcare.
Well, I just want to thank both of you, because your enthusiasm, this group of enthusiasm in looking into the future. I have a special needs granddaughter, and I think it was last weekend or the weekend before, I spent the whole day with her. And, having JCDS and seeing the things that you guys are doing, to me, are just so creative, and you're making people and their lives better. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you looking at this. I'd be more than happy to forward over all this information, but I think it's very critical. And the workforce, I did get permission from Penny Postal Ferguson to have a researcher, and I've started already looking at what jobs are opening. There's over 5,000 jobs in the 6th district that are opening up. And so what we're trying to do is go in and pinpoint where those jobs are, where they're located, and then also what housing is coming up. So there's a lot of great things happening, but I appreciate you opening up and looking at this as a possibility.
Go ahead. If you've got a comment, by all means.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, and thank you. Yes, I want to say thank you to Commissioner Alan Brand on this, because when you think about the purpose of these plans, you mentioned they're threefold: decent housing, suitable living environment, and expanding economic opportunities for low and moderate income persons in Johnson County. When we think about the challenges that low to moderate income persons in Johnson County have, childcare is a huge one of those. And so not only through these plans, but through partnership with folks at the state, partnership with folks at the federal level, partnerships with folks in the city, nonprofits, private sector. We need to have all hands on deck when we think about how we're going to expand opportunities for childcare. So I appreciate very much that Commissioner Alan Brand is looking at innovative ways to expand childcare and finding if there's economic development points within these plans for the future. We want to be able to explore those and potentially utilize those in future years. And Adam, I appreciate you working on this one as well. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Ashcraft?
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Davis, so are you familiar with the 4 bullets that Commissioner Alan Brand just handed out?
I did receive a copy of it, yes.
Yeah, and I'm forwarding over that.
Okay,
information.
and I just want to make sure I understand the conversation, because as Commissioner Alan Brand indicated, I'm cold in terms of this particular discussion, so I needed some context. You made the statement that some or all of these are already in the comp plan. Is that what you said?
Yes, so actually what this is particularly about economic development is an eligible activity. There are just not any projects proposed at this time for 2025.
Okay, so, but we are not, Commissioner Alan Brand, or you're not expecting or anticipating any changes to the 5-year plan that's being proposed. You think it, as it stands, it is good. Now, in future years, annual plans could be modified slightly, and you think as it currently is framed, the consolidated plan is framed would allow for consideration of the points that Commissioner okay, I just wanted to make sure I
I'm
was.
going to forward over the email I got last night
Yeah,
to everyone.
And that's fine. I just wanted to be clear on that. So just for clarification, I have other points, but I will yield to any other comments.
Commissioner Fast?
So on the Chodo, you have 250,000, operating 50,000. Does the Chodo have to have a project, like, we had the Prairie Brook project, and can it be carried over from year to year until there is a project?
Yes,
I like, you're like,
that is correct.
it can be carried over,
Yes, ma'am.
but it has to be then designated towards the project?
Yes, ma'am.
So they would then submit, like, the eligible, like, if there's a Prairie Brook. So it could be there for 3 years. You could just, so like in 3 years, they would have 750,000.
That is correct.
Wow, I'm so smart today.
I'll write it down for you.
Yeah.
Commissioner O'Hara?
Oh, thank you. Well, a big problem that I have heard from child care facilities is that the ever-increasing property taxes continually push their cost up, and we are negligent in our responsibility in attempting to keep our expenditures within a reasonable rate, but we never talk about that. So last week, this board approved the 5-year plan, and now this is coming forward as part of the 3.9 that we approved, or is this additional?
The plan you approved last week was for the Public Housing Authority plan. This is the consolidated plan for CDBG and home.
Okay.
They are two different HUD programs.
Okay, but the home dollars coming in, they have the same restrictions as the home ARP?
I am going to ask Heather McNeve to step in on that question, please.
I appreciate your clarification on this. Thank you.
Hello, Heather McNeve, Housing Services Director. So yes, this is regular Home Investment Partnerships Program grant
And they have
funds.
the same requirements that we can't do any screening, so is that correct?
So regular Home Investment Partnership is used for our homeowner rehab program for eligible low-income homeowners in our community to rehab their house for health and safety. It's also used for new construction and rehab of housing developments.
But are we prohibited from screening for citizenship and residency of Johnson? Well, obviously, if you have a home in Johnson County, you're resident. But
It's all for Johnson County benefit, and it's all subject to federal oversight and regulations.
okay, so we cannot screen for citizenship, is that correct?
So it does have to benefit a citizen or someone with eligible immigration status.
Okay, so they have to have legal long-term immigration status
For
or
regular
citizenship.
home investment partnership program, yes.
Okay, so it does not have the same prohibitions that home ARP funds have.
Correct.
Okay,
All right.
I think I got this. All right. So there's no requirement, I mean, these have these have more restrictions as to who can qualify for these dollars, correct?
Correct. This grant is more broad than Home ARP. Home ARP is limited to the homeless and the vulnerable populations, and Home ARP is,
Okay.
home investment is more broad, so home ownership is a big part of regular
great.
home.
Yeah, well, I'm
I know
real
you
big
are.
into home ownership. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would ask for the indulgement to allow me to rail a little bit, and I will look to Commissioner Hanslick and Commissioner Myers to offer any observations on this. A couple of points. Historically, Mr. Chairman, there's been some angst, at least on my part, because some communities have used these funds for streetlights. And I'm not saying streetlights are good or bad, but in terms of the priority of community impact, it seemed to be a nicety driven more from what people like versus a necessity, and we could debate that. And I noticed here that another community is doing the same, but they have a different standing than that previous community. So I won't rail on that city. They're well within their rights. But the point I wanted to make, Mr. Chairman, and this has been a frustration. I know Commissioner Hanslick and I have had this conversation. The way the program had been structured was a maximum of 15% could be used for, and I believe it's called public service projects. And basically, the conversation was using any of these funds to help with county priorities on homelessness and housing, and being topped out at 15%. Well, approximately, and my fellow commissioners, 5 years ago, we had gone to a NALGA, National Association of County Governments meeting in Washington after some correspondence and complaining, and met with executives from HUD who gave us assurances that, well, we could do that. All we had to do is change our consolidated 5-year plan. And so I sat back with that anticipation, expectation. But lo and behold, it is now still set at 15%. And having hammered staff and being dutifully hammered back, they have indicated that the regional administrator has established that as a dictate. And it's really quite frustrating because, and please correct me if my recollection differs from yours, we have heard from both Ben Carson under the Trump administration and Julian Castro under the Obama administration that locales should have and do have more flexibility in the use of those funds. Unfortunately, the current administration doesn't have a permanent secretary, so I don't know what their standing is on. But I will support this procedurally because, quite honestly, we don't have any choice. But I would hope, and I would ask fellow commissioners, if we go back to NACO again this year, that we once again attempt to visit with whoever may be in the HUD secretarial position. That I understand the emphasis on infrastructure, but the need is programmatic elements, and this restriction is arbitrary. So I just make that as a request for our federal agenda and our federal process when we go back to NACO. And I will also say I have heard that there has been some discussion of actually going back to the original program back in the 70s, that community development block grants really will go back to being block grants, to where the locales can then use the funds as they see fit without these federally imposed limits. So, but knowing how quickly and expeditiously and efficiently the federal government works, I suspect we will have to be back begging. So just an observation. Commissioner Myers and Commissioner Hanslick, correct me if you disagree, please.
All right. Commissioner Myers?
I do not disagree. We've had those discussions, and that's why it's like fingernails on a chalkboard when I hear people up on the dais talk about, we never discuss these things, or we never talk about something, or we're not transparent. We are all of those things, and we do all of those things. It's constant. So that's where I don't like some of those statements to be made, because then the public thinks we're not doing anything or not doing our jobs. We are consistently, constantly doing our jobs and having these types of discussions and being transparent with it and trying to help our communities be a better place and trying to provide, again, help not only to our county as a whole, but a lot of times we're trying to help with city involvement also in these programs that there's participation in. So it's frustrating sometimes hearing some of the words that come out, and then people want to jump on that and say, why aren't you doing this? We are doing it. We do it. We do it every day.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, can you just remind me what percentage of the CDBG funds are for Olathe and then for
Lenexa.
Lenexa?
Olathe gets 41% through a memorandum of understanding, and Lenexa gets 16.
Thank you. And my understanding from our conversation with the HUD folks was that the cities can select their own activities, that we don't have the authority to tell them how they should use their funding within the CDBG guidelines.
Correct. As long as they're a HUD-eligible activity and completed for low to moderate income individuals, we do not have any oversight.
So, like Lenexa, if they want to use it for streetlights, they could do it. You know, and
I did
I
not
agree
use
with
that
you.
name. I did not mention this.
I agree. I share your frustration, though, that we don't have more authority over it.
Could I add one more comment? I just want to say,
Absolutely not.
I'm getting back on the rails, Ms. Davis.
okay, the 15% public service cap is a statutory requirement. The letter that Commissioner Ashcraft is referring to from our regional director last year, I brought it in as a courtesy to remind everybody that there may have been some misunderstanding because there is no flexibility, but there have been communities that have received exemptions in certain situations, and I went and I researched some of those after our meeting yesterday. One of those situations was the Los Angeles riots, and the second one was the COVID pandemic. So there is exemptions. I just wanted to point that out. That's all.
Commissioner Fast.
I can do a motion when you're
All
ready.
right, that'd be great.
I move to approve and adopt resolution number 047-24 to approve the 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan and 2025 action plan with estimated funding in the amount of $2,538,000 in CDBG and home funding, and the proposed citizen participation plan as recommended and approved by the Housing and Community Development Advisory Committee on August 14th, 2024, and authorizing the county manager to execute and submit the plans and related documents to HUD.
Myers, second.
Moved by Commissioner Fast, seconded by Commissioner Myers. Commissioner O'Hara?
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, but the CDBG grants, they also pay for the majority of the housing authority's staff?
That is not correct.
Okay,
The CDBG pays for 2 salaries, and that's for the CDBG staff.
okay, so there's 2 salaries that's under the CDBG, and then the balance, because when I go through and look at it, they're grant funded, so where do those grants come from?
There are other grants that those positions are funded from, but it is not CDBG. And I believe the list has been provided previously.
Would you mind emailing me that? Because obviously I'm not clear on that, and I'm just want, because I've just heard I've heard CDBG thrown around, and so I want to understand how the staffing and what grants those are and where that's coming from.
Yes, on the first item on our project list is our admin, and that goes to the salaries of the 2 staff members and our public notices. And this year, we decreased it by $50,000 from last year, so we can put a little bit more money into projects.
Okay, so we have 2 staff positions that's coming out of this total of 2.5 million.
The total for CDBG was 1.3 million. So so subtract that from the home. Home is making it 2 point
Right.
something, yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
All right, just email me so that I have the clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing other comments, but let me just say, Ms. Davis, thank you for this program, and thank you for the partnership and understanding that it is a partnership with the federal government to be eligible and to be able to utilize these funds. It's also a partnership then with cities. And we have duly elected representatives at the federal level that create certain programs, and we have duly elected city council members and mayors that then have an opportunity to prioritize utilization of funds in their communities. And it is a balance that we have in working with these partners to make sure that the funds not only get to Johnson County, but then are utilized in Johnson County. And while we all might have difference of opinion on whether or not programmatic or infrastructure investments are most impactful on helping those with low to moderate incomes in our communities, I'm of the adage that all of the above are necessary. And how we are able to utilize certain pools of funding to fit Box A means that, yeah, we may need to use ad valorem for Box B, but if we can get additional funds to the greater pool, although they may come with restrictions, we're going to be better off for it because it's not going to all come from ad valorem from our residents. So I appreciate that we are intentional about these programs that are not easy and that therefore take staff to be able to implement them correctly. So I appreciate those staff that are able to be helping with the CDBG program. And to Commissioner Myers, I appreciate and understand your frustration. And we are doing great work. It's easier to criticize than it is to innovate and to try to bring forward new ideas and to actually then move the community forward. And so that's hard work, but I am proud to work with those who want to work on those moving forward each and every week, discussing priorities and the impacts on our communities, and let the record reflect, and it does reflect, the work that is being done. With that, I'm going to ask that the clerk go ahead and calls the roll on Commissioner Fast's motion.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen
Allen Brown, aye.
and Chairman Kelly.
Aye, we have 7 votes in favor, none against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
All right, on to item number 7 at this time. This is, if I can get there, the request for a contract with IMG Technology Corp. for budget and planning solution software. Robin Symes is here on this item. Ms. Symes, thank you very much for your presentation at Agenda Review. I'm glad that this IGM Technology Corp. Bid looks to be head and shoulders above the others, and also something that the Budget Department is excited about utilizing. Is there anything further you wanted to provide at this time for our consideration?
No, I have no further comments.
All right, Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Symes, just a couple of quick questions. So, this, by comparison, looks like a relatively inexpensive program, software, but will we have the source code that will allow us to make modifications, or will we have to rely upon this firm for any changes or enhancements or modifications and any subsequent add-on billing costs? And I'm thinking in terms of sometimes companies have loss leaders. They get in the door, and then every time you want to move a comma, they charge you exorbitant prices. Do we have safeguards against that? For example, like having access to the source code?
Yes, once we actually have the system, we'll be able to make modifications. A good example would be, let's say we decide to go from a step plan to eliminating a step plan and actually just going back. We would have the capabilities to go ahead and put all of that in our system. And in fact, we're working collaboratively with DTI, so we'll have 2 staff members who will be experts also on the back information of the system, and so they'll also be able to provide us that technical support. The only time we would probably need to go back is if we added on a brand-new module that we don't even have in the system, or let's say we actually went to a completely different ERP system and we would actually have to change the structure, that's when we would need to go back. But no, making changes within the system, adding a department, deleting a department, those we'd be able to do on our own.
Oh, and if you wouldn't mind, you made reference to an ERP or?
Or like an enterprise, like Oracle, or if we were to move away from Oracle,
okay.
then
I
that's
just-
when we would need to actually redo the structure
I
of
just
that.
did not understand the vernacular. Thank you. And you make reference to some cost savings by using this system, that you anticipate savings with printing of the CAFR and other budgetary documents. So have you done any kind of return on investment analysis? What other impacts will this have that you're anticipating?
So other than being able to shift that cost to actually fund the ongoing piece of the software system, so we estimate conservatively that we would save probably between 400 to 500 hours of manual labor. So a perfect example would be our current system right now to run it. If we made a change to a salary, to a benefit, to run our salary calculation for the entire organization, it takes between 2 to 3 hours. The new system will be able to do that in less than 1 minute. So also with that, once we run those calculations, we have to actually import them into Excel and run variances in that. The new system will have the variance automatically shown. So again, it will save staff time on doing that manual verification. Other efficiencies that we'll have, departments currently, they put their requests for additional resources and capital improvement requests on Word and Excel documents. They submit that to our office. Then our office manually enters that into the system. With a new system, they'll be able to automatically enter that into the system. And so again, it saves our time, it saves their time, and they'll be able to look at that, make changes on the fly instead of constantly calling us or talking to us. The last thing that I think will be a huge benefit for departments and our budget staff is we'll be able to create dashboards within the system, and we'll be able to pull actuals from our Oracle system and actually input that into the budget database, which we don't have that capability now. Once we upload the budget into Oracle, that's it. They don't talk to each other after that point. We'll be able to move that in. Departments will be able to pull that information in, run forecasting for the year, be able to make assumptions, make changes within their forecasting within the system. So again, they won't probably have to have as many shadow systems in Excel. They'll be able to do all of that in the new budget software system. So I think we're going to have a lot of efficiencies. We'll also probably even have more accuracy without as much manual entry.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Ms. Symes, I just appreciate how innovative that your team is. I can't thank you enough. With the company coming in, doing the line item audit, and then it's everything, In fact, I thank Commissioner Ashcraft for asking the question about the labor, because to me, that's what I saw, reduction in labor, and also limiting errors, because the more you enter stuff, the more time it takes, the more you're going to create more errors. So, and I really do appreciate your team, and I'm just going to say it here, Mr. Dad and your team working on the budget for Fire One, and what a great job. So thank you for that. And I have a motion when you're ready, Chair.
All right, well, we'll come back to you for that motion. Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you. So just to be clear, that using this, switching to this technology is going to save us time, it's going to create more transparency, it's going to help departments better oversee their budgets.
Yes, all of that and
so,
more.
okay,
And we're very excited.
Contrary to some things that we hear on this dais, this is one of many, many examples of how our staff is looking for ways to constantly improve efficiency and save money. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Myers.
Yes, well, there's a lot of things that I don't like about elections, but this is one of the things that I like about it, is when you can communicate with residents that there are things coming that I believe are coming on board, such as this, where it's going to allow us to be more efficient, to look at efficiencies across the departments throughout the county. These are the types of things that get me excited also, and I believe it's going to create some great benefit.
Commissioner O'Hara?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Robin, is this going to address any of the issues that was brought forward in our internal auditor's report that we received, I think it was September the 12th? On the issues of the ION system?
This is a budget system.
Right, but so this will have nothing, this will have no impact on.
It does not deal with procurement.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One last thing, sorry, before the motion, I would like to thank DTI for all their assistance, especially Lisa Davis and Tammy Fashing. They worked tirelessly with us on the RFP process and also will be helping us through the project management. So again, we've never done this before, and so using those resources are really helpful to our department.
Thank you. How about that motion, Commissioner Allen?
Thank you, Chair. I move to authorize a contract with IGM Technology Corp. For budget and planning solution software at a cost not to exceed $361,837 for a 2-year term, with the option to renew at an additional 3 1 and 1-year renewals. Authorized fiscal year FY 2024 start date for the FY 2025 approved budget software request for additional resources, and authorize the reallocation of expenditures of reserves FY 2024 for the amount of $100,000 from the general fund.
Hanslick, second.
Moved by Commissioner Allenbrand, seconded by Commissioner Hanslick. And just to clarify, that would be an additional 3 1-year renewals.
Thank you.
Yep, just making sure. All right, without further ado, we'll ask clerk to call the roll, please.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
We have 7 votes in favor and none against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Very good. At this time, we'll ask Tony Barron to step up to the plate to discuss on-call architectural and engineering services. Mr. Barron, appreciate the presentation on this item last week regarding the various firms for various tasks that would be selected. Is there anything further that you wanted to provide at this time regarding this item?
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. I have nothing further to add at this time.
Thank you very much, sir. 29 responsive proposals, 12 finalists interviewed in categories for just architectural services, for small firms, for medium and large firms, and then those with in-house MEP services. We wanted a diverse selection of firms to be able to be on call to meet the various needs of 80-plus facilities here in Johnson County. So I understand the broad reach of these agreements, and I'm supportive of them. Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Barron, just a couple of questions, a couple of clarifications, if you would. I understand the groupings, small, medium, large, and I think I understand the general philosophy behind it. It would seem to make sense. But in terms of how that translates into projects, it corresponds with small, medium, and large projects. Is that correct? And how do you determine if what's small, what's medium, what's large? Do you have a dollar parameter or a complexity criteria? How do you do that?
Yes, and thank you for the question. So yes, what we do is within our planning, design, and construction division, we have work instructions on how to use our construction and architectural terms and supply contracts. something after our conversation yesterday that I went back and I was able to access. So how do we choose that? And I shared with you that smaller projects tend to have the smaller firms. We talked more about the money part of it. But here's how we go about it, Commissioner Ashcraft. Anything over $150,000, what we will do is we'll reach out to the terms and supply contract, the architects on there, and what we'll do is we'll ask for proposals from them. These proposals will include the cost, the project approach narrative, firm experience, and illustrative work. In many of those reach outs that we ask them for that information, the smaller projects will tend to navigate towards the smaller firms just because of the cost approach to that. What we do is that we do that. The PM recommends a firm based on those types of those 4 items there. We also will use interviews and for larger projects, we'll do smaller evaluation committees within our divisions to help out with that process. From there, the PM will recommend a firm for this project, and it goes to our assistant director and or our division director of planning, design, and construction. So per our conversation, it was more monetarily based. This is more cost is included in those 4 items, along with the approach narrative, team experience, and illustrative work.
Okay. And in reflection of my ignorance, what exactly is a PM?
Sorry, a project manager, I'm sorry.
A project manager. And so you send it, you have a project and you will send it to all these firms, not just those within a group?
That's correct. Well, we will reach out to them all.
Okay. And then one follow-on question. Mr. Bowden, how many of these firms that you're recommending of all sizes, how many of those are new or first-time firms that we're involving in our efforts?
Yes, so starting with Group A, both firms on Group A will be new to Johnson County, so they will be new. Group B, we have the Dake Wells and Finkel and Williams. They have been on our terms and supply contracts before. B&M Architects is new to the contract, but not new to working with Johnson County. We have worked with them before. And on Group C, Clark Anderson is a familiar face on the terms and supply contract. HDR is new to the contract. We have not worked with them in recent past, but we do have a history with them.
So 2 new firms, those that haven't had much experience or any experience with us.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
To your point about some of these others, BNIM and HDR, whether it be, like, for example, the Nelson Wastewater Treatment Facility, HDR is working on that project. And so they have familiarity with the county as well as national and frankly international experience.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Hanslick,
I'd be glad to make a motion.
why don't you go ahead?
I move to authorize term and supply contracts with Adams Architects, Studio Local, BNIM, Dake Wells Architecture, Finkel and Williams Architecture, Clark and Enerson, and HDR Architecture, Inc. for on-call architectural and engineering services in the annual aggregate amount not to exceed $1,600,000 for a period of 1 year with the option to renew for 4 additional 1-year periods per RFP number 2024-036.
Myers, second.
Moved by Commissioner Hanslick, seconded by Commissioner Myers. Seeing no further questions or comments at this time, I'd ask the clerk to go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Kelly.
Yes, we have 7 votes in favor, none against. Is that consistent with your count?
That is correct.
Very good, Mr. Barron, thank you very much. At this time, we'll move on to a management report from our county manager, Penny Postock Ferguson.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. To have 2 items today. First is the SERI report for October. The report's attached. In August 2024, the unemployment rate was 3.4% compared to 3% the previous year. Year-to-date, single-family home sales through August were 5,575 compared to 5,774 last year. This is a 3.4% decrease. And then single-family building permits year-to-date through August issued were 1,160 compared to 951 the previous year, and this is a 22% increase. Total retail sales increased by 2% for Johnson County year-to-date through July 2024. And with that, Chairman, I'll move on to the second item, and that's regarding the National RX Drug Take Back Day. The Department of Health and Environment is helping promote the upcoming National RX Drug Take Back Day. It will be held this Saturday, October 26th from 10 to 2. Local law enforcement and the Drug Enforcement Administration are hosting the DEA's National Prescription Drug Take Back Day at locations across Johnson County, including the Sheriff's Office. Take Back Day offers free and anonymous disposal of unneeded medications such as tablets, capsules, patches, and other solid forms of prescription drugs. More information can be found on the website deatakeback.com. So with that, Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Bostock Ferguson.
You're welcome.
All right, at this time, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. We'll start today. Commissioner Hanslick, how about giving us a start?
Word. Not a whole lot to report today, but I did want to thank the staff of Johnson County Wastewater and the consultants for a really outstanding tour of the construction going on at the Nelson Wastewater Treatment Facility in Mission. It just amazes me that they are building that new facility while also operating the old one. So it was a very helpful and interesting tour. I also just wanted to clarify, because it was brought up in public comments, that the November 5th conversion to the state court OJA system, that is set by the state. That was not the Board of County Commissioners. Frankly, I found it curious myself that they would choose that date, but that is out of our hands. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to comment, if I could, on Commissioner Hanslick. I appreciate you raising the issue, and I suspect that for most counties it's not an issue, but if we happen to have resource demands on our IT folks for the changeover as well as the election, it could be a challenge. And I mean, why they picked that date is just beyond explanation. The courts work in mysterious ways. How about that? Mr. Chairman, just a quick committee report. The Johnson County Developmental Services Board met this week. I wanted just to offer, and I had mentioned this on the dais before, there are pressures originating at the federal level, and KDA, Kansas Department of, or KDAD,
KDADS.
KDAD, whatever DAD stands for, is moving forward with the conflict of interest concerns that the federal government has mandated, which means we'll need to look at targeted case management and separating out the community development disabilities organizations, or CDDOs, at some point. It is moving forward. It is anticipated within 18 months to maybe up to 5 years. Staff is indicating that they will not be on the bleeding edge of that changeover, so it will probably be much longer than 18 months, but it is coming. And when that happens, while we believe there are mechanisms within the county that would allow us to do it administratively and efficiently, it will probably require board action in terms of the movement of resources, but I will defer to the manager at that point in time, if or I should say when that decision has to be made. One of the questions was, what was the genesis, the motivation for that? And it was a little bit akin to the fire marshal issue. If you remember, I'd raised that or shared that with you before. The fire marshals had done some kind of administrative reinterpretation of the law requiring that the locks be changed in all the homes, precipitating the need to change the doors and the framing, and became quite an expensive burden. So I hope that this conflict of interest reorganization doesn't morph into something more expensive, but I think that always weighs heavily on the county manager's head. So hopefully it will not happen that way, and hopefully it will happen in due course and not be rushed upon us. So that is the end of my report.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tuesday afternoon, I was at the Juvenile Detention Center for Bible Study, and as always, it's one of the highlights of my week. It's just really refreshing to see these kids progress and the quality of the programs that we have at the detention center. And then also, I think we were up to 17 a couple of weeks ago, and now we're down to about 11. So that's the census. I'm going to talk about some articles that I gave my colleagues to read. We're always talking about affordable housing, and these are, I think, all but one are from the Wall Street Journal. It states that about 55% of government-backed and conventional purchase mortgages in August went to first-time home buyers. And it talks about how the market is making a difference in how families are helping their children and other family members to help in buying their first home. I just thought that was just really refreshing. 55% of government-backed and conventional purchase mortgages in August went to first-time home buyers. So that was really good news. And then there's this, the title is Billionaire Town in California That's Going Broke. And it's Portola Valley is best known for its billionaire denizens. So how can it be struggling to pay its bills? And it talks about that the affordable housing issue has been hitting them, and that if they don't rezone land to accommodate multifamily housing, that the state has threatened to withhold federal and state grants. Very, sounds like a battle very similar to Prairie Village. So I wanted to bring that. And then the other thing, the AI boom, it is absolutely just setting off a land rush for these huge data centers, which can cover 300 to 500 acres. And according to this Wall Street Journal article, that the large data centers can consume roughly the same amount of electricity as a mid-size city. So these big firms are buying up old coal plants and to just be their power source. And then the other thing that Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, according to this article, are investing billions in nuclear power. So that's going to be really interesting to see this go forward. And then as an example of AI centers, actually Peculiar, Missouri, their city leaders are considering a process that would block data center development. So localities are looking at this because my understanding that these AI centers not only consume an enormous amount of electricity, but also an enormous amount of water, and that they are very, very noisy. And there are very few employees in those big data centers. So this is going to be a huge impact on probably almost every city in the United States. So we need to be looking forward. I know we're looking at our codes, and I think perhaps in planning we need to be looking at this before some developer comes knocking at our door. In fact, I've heard that that Johnson County has been considered for data centers. So then public comments. Number one, Leo Kayak. and he's been speaking with Commissioner Hanslick on some issues. He mentioned Sheriff Hayden. He mentioned our Chief Legal Counsel, Peg Trent, Ben Hobart, Westwood Hills. He was talking about the public funds of $24.8 million that went to Evergreen, which is a nursing home facility that operates our nursing home at 119th and Ridgeview area, and was lamenting that the RFP for...
Commissioner, I will note you're beyond 5 minutes, if you wouldn't mind concluding.
The RFP was pulled, stating the best interest of the county, and he was questioning that. James Smothers, is it Smithers or Smothers? Smathers. Well, I was wrong. Okay, thank you. Was talking about noise issues at Antioch Park, and said it has undue stress on patrons of the park, and I would like to hear more about that. Sheridan Pyle was about the concern of our Odyssey, turning on Odyssey on November the 5th, and I want to echo with my colleagues that the county staff has worked very hard with the administrative court to delay that, and that wasn't successful. And then Jeff Harkness was talking about transit, and Galen Van Horn was questioning where the land is for Habitat for Humanity, and she wanted to know if we are working on our county homeless issue or the world's homeless issue. And then Jill O'Connor was talking about the COVID money and that it should be spent for benefit of the whole county, such as infrastructure. And with that, if public comments were public, I wouldn't have to read these. Thank you.
Public comments are public and are welcome to anybody to the board assembled. Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's a great day because I heard this morning on the news that gas is going down, our inflation has gone down, and I voted yesterday. And even though there was a big, long line, I got through very quickly, and I appreciate the new monitors. They're very easy to vote on, so I think that's all great news. I attended the Gardner City Council meeting Monday night. I want to thank Mr. Dad, the fire department, Joe Connor, for attending with me. I also want to let everyone know here that we're expecting any day now the $15 million for the control center, control tower out at New Century Airport. I also wanted to share with you that it's called Joe By. It's a 4-passenger commercial air traffic. This is not out of China, because I've heard that comment. This is out of a California-based Joby. It's still unnamed. It's a 4-passenger E-Volt model by the end of the year. So there's a lift cruise design featuring 6 tilted electric motor rotor units, along with installing wing, V-shaped tail, and I can get you all the details, but anyway, it's another form of travel. So they've also reached out to Delta Airlines, so that's going to be operating, so George Jetson's not so far away. So I wanted to share that with everyone. Also, we're starting at New Century the J-Track rehabilitation on the rail. As you all know, the ones that attended the Flora Foods groundbreaking, they're using more rail and trying to get away from trucks. I have the Edgerton City Council meeting tonight, and just so everybody, a reminder that the City of Olathe city address is Friday. With that, thank you. Lunch, and what did I say, dinner?
Yes, attended the Nelson wastewater tour, which is just a few blocks from my house, but I just do want to highlight, with all the construction going, I've not heard complaints about noise and the odor, which is always a huge issue in my adjoining neighborhoods. There hasn't been any complaints about odors either. So, I mean, this is a huge project for Johnson County to undertake. It's what I find fascinating. It started operation in 1949, and my house was built in 1950. So my whole neighborhood was developed after that treatment plant started, and most of the neighborhoods in Northeast, because of that landmark decision, and with increased density, this expanding the capacity is going to be huge, that we get in front of that. I attended the Johnson County Wastewater Inflow meeting. It was full of people from Northeast Johnson. Westwood, Fairway, and parts of Mission Hills can apply to be in the program. Just an incredible program to reduce sewer backups and direct water flow from your sewer pipes. Also, Friday, Congresswoman Sharice Davids had a meeting on FIFA. A large number of the mayors were there from the Northeast. They brought up concerns about the cost of law enforcement during FIFA, and would there be federal money from Rep. Davids. I talked with Aaron Wynn, our legislative agenda, how can we work with the cities, because the congresswoman can't really get federal money for a little bit, $2,000 for Leawood, $1,000 for Mission, how can we work together on, some of the reimbursement of those federal costs. They also brought up road construction projects during it, like right now, if you go in Northeast, Mission, Null, and Rowe has construction. So, how can we work on road construction during that time? They also said that Joe Connor serves on that committee. Is there any way we could get like a quarterly report? It is 600 days. It blew me away. I would like to have regular updates, and I know you won't be on it for long, but whoever.
Are you talking about the RHSCC?
No, the FIFA, whatever committee you're on. They said you're on a senior committee.
Okay.
So, I would like an update every 2 to 3 months, and I know the next one won't be you, so you're saying yes for the next person. Yeah. So last, Regional Housing Partnership, Commissioner Hanslick and I both serve on that, and they've had a strategic planning on housing in the bi-state region. We had our last meeting, and now there will be work groups. So that strategic planning has ended, and then there will be work groups with developers, tenants, CHODOs, and so I'm excited to see the next steps on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, Commissioner Fast, the inflow program put on by the wastewater district that in the city of Shawnee, it has made invaluable improvements for neighborhoods and residents in the city of Shawnee, and it will do the same, I'm sure, for Northeast. I think Mr. Smathers was asking Parks and Recreation District to look at their noise policy, and that's what the main point was. And that message will get to them, and we'll look at that for sure. And then the only other meeting that I attended this week was the Chief Elected Officials Board of the Workforce Partnership, and again, things are moving very well. The reports are all in a positive light, and so that's a report on workforce partnership. Things are looking up. We appointed a new board member, and that was one of the big items for that meeting.
Very good. Thank you, sir. A couple really quick things. Number one, to Commissioner Fast's point, on behalf of the 11 U.S. host committees for the FIFA World Cup, we sent a request for safety and security funds of $625 million for emergency services, which would then be distributed to the 11 cities, which would then be distributed, and by cities, I mean host committees for those regions. And so I'm hopeful for that allocation, which would then go toward the municipalities and others for safety and security purposes. But I agree, we can do more on an updating front, and we'll do that. And so thank you to Joe for helping us put that on a timeline and a schedule, because you're right, we're now less than 600 days away from the biggest event in the history of our community, so we're going to be ready for it. To a couple other points, the Nelson Wastewater Treatment Facility, the scale and the scope of that project is a bit unprecedented for Johnson County. While the project is a massive undertaking, the amount of care and attention that has gone into not only the construction and design and utilizing gravity to save money over the landscape of that project, but being able to operate a facility while also building a new one is remarkable. The fact that we've saved hundreds of millions of dollars utilizing the state revolving fund, utilizing WIFIA loans, is also pretty remarkable, knowing that this will serve about 4% of the state's population when it is fully constructed. So the care and attention that's gone into that, and also being able to lock in the rate increases in subsequent years, that took planning, that took effort. And then the criticism that comes from, oh, well, your budget's just exploded. It's fee-supported. And its intention in building a community for the future that's going to best serve our residents. And I hope people would take just the extra second to dive into what investments have been made in our community and how that's impacting our lives and the future of our kids. So I'm proud of that work that's being done. I challenge anybody to that conversation. Additionally, we had more early voting. We've had more early voting already at this point than any time in Johnson County's history. In the first day alone, it's kind of like opening day, whether it's you're going to a baseball game or it's the opening day of hunting season. People who wanted to get out were out, but the lines moved smoothly and consistently. And so congratulations and thank you to not only the volunteers, but the officials at the election office for making it a safe, secure, and efficient process. We had twice as many people vote on the first day in 2024 than we did in 2020. And that trend is continuing through Monday and Tuesday counts. So people are excited to have their voices heard. If you haven't taken the opportunity yet, there are 10 sites that are open right now in Johnson County, and as of next Monday, there will be 18 sites that are open for early voting. Please get out and exercise your vote. It matters. We appreciate it. We do have a study session this afternoon that will hopefully start at 1 o'clock. But before that, we're going to have an agenda review. We're going to take a minute to allow not only a break for the staff, but also to change the technology on our meetings. And the clerk has an item.
We will first have the special PBC
Special
meeting.
PBS, also a PBC, different network if you're watching. Special PBC should be short, but we do have to change the technology regardless, and we'll take that break for staff. So thank you all for coming to our meeting today. If absent an objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.